China just signaled that it wants its commercial space sector to become a major global player, and that could seriously shake up the balance of power in space. And this is the part most people miss. The plan is not just about rockets and satellites, it is about exporting influence, standards, and services to the rest of the world. China's space agency has rolled out a 2-year action plan designed to accelerate the growth of private and commercial space companies while pushing them to expand their presence beyond China's borders. The core idea is to give these firms more support at home and more opportunities abroad so they can compete in international markets and partner with other countries, especially developing ones. The plan specifically encourages Chinese commercial space companies to go global and help build satellite application industries in nations that are still in the early stages of using space-based technology. A key promise in the plan is to weave commercial space projects directly into China's broader international cooperation agenda. In practical terms, that means commercial missions and companies will no longer sit on the sidelines while state-led projects take the lead in diplomacy and joint programs. Instead, they will be invited to participate in cooperative missions, services, and infrastructure building efforts that China undertakes with other countries. For developing states, this could mean easier access to satellite data, communication services, or even launch opportunities via Chinese commercial partners. One of the most powerful incentives in the action plan is expanded access to China's national space infrastructure. The country's network of civilian tracking, telemetry and control, TT&C, stations, data receiving centers, calibration ranges, and validation fields will be opened up more widely to commercial operators. These are the facilities that monitor spacecraft, receive data, and verify that space systems perform correctly. On top of that, commercial firms will be able to tap into major test assets, such as rocket engine test stands and space environment simulation facilities, which are crucial for testing hardware under realistic conditions before it ever leaves Earth. Commercial companies will not just be service users, they are also expected to help push the technological frontier. The agency plans to choose private players through open competition to join critical and cutting-edge space programs. These competitive opportunities will span advanced propulsion systems, new generations of satellite platforms and onboard payloads, and integrated systems that combine communications, navigation, and remote sensing. For example, a startup might be selected to develop an innovative thruster, while another might work on satellites that merge internet connectivity, positioning, and Earth observation data into one service. But here's where it gets controversial. Opening high-end strategic projects to commercial competition could fuel rapid innovation, or it could concentrate opportunities among a few well-connected companies. To give the sector financial muscle, the plan calls for the creation of a national commercial space development fund. This fund is meant to channel capital into promising projects and help reduce the financial risk for companies trying to scale up. At the same time, the government intends to expand its own procurement of commercial products and services. That means national missions will increasingly buy launch vehicles, satellites, launch site services, and TT&C capabilities from commercial vendors, integrating private sector solutions into state-led projects rather than building everything in-house. Local and regional governments will also play a big role. They are urged to establish technology innovation centers that concentrate on two fast-growing areas: reusable rockets and smart satellites. Reusable launch vehicles can dramatically cut the cost of getting into orbit by flying multiple times, while smart satellites use advanced onboard processing and sometimes artificial intelligence to handle more tasks in space rather than sending everything back to the ground. The plan further encourages local authorities to build open platforms for high-end manufacturing, final assembly, and testing, giving companies shared access to specialized production lines and test facilities that might otherwise be too expensive to build alone. Additional support measures in the plan are very infrastructure and standards focused. These include the construction of dedicated commercial launch sites designed with private operators in mind, rather than only state-run missions. The plan also calls for unifying space-related standards so that equipment, data formats, and operational procedures are more consistent across projects and companies. Another notable point is the decision to open up space debris data so that it can be used to provide collision warnings for commercial spacecraft. In practice, this means operators of private satellites would be better able to predict and avoid potentially dangerous debris, a growing concern as Earth's orbits become more crowded. The vision does not stop at traditional satellite services. Commercial companies are explicitly encouraged to explore emerging and more experimental business areas in space. These include space resource utilization, such as mining or extracting materials from celestial bodies or orbital debris, on-orbit servicing, refueling, repairing, or upgrading satellites while they remain in space, active debris removal, space tourism, and in-space biomanufacturing. For instance, biomanufacturing in microgravity might enable the production of advanced materials or medical products that are hard or impossible to make on Earth. But here's where it might spark debate. Should private firms be allowed to profit from space resources, and under what global rules? All of these efforts are tied to a clear timeline. The action plan sets a goal of achieving high-quality development of the commercial space sector by 2027, signaling that growth alone is not enough. China wants sophisticated, competitive, and technologically advanced players. Looking further ahead, the recommendations for China's 15th Five-Year Plan, covering 2026 to 2030, classify aerospace as one of the country's strategic emerging industries. This label typically means strong policy support, priority in funding, and integration into long-term national development goals. In other words, commercial space is being positioned as a pillar of future economic and technological strength, not just a niche sector. And this is the part most people miss. This plan is as much about shaping global norms and markets as it is about technology. If Chinese commercial firms help developing countries build their satellite industries and infrastructure, those nations may end up aligning with Chinese standards, systems, and services for decades. That could challenge existing space powers and raise questions about dependence, data security, and fair competition. So what do you think? Is this action plan a positive step that will democratize access to space and support developing countries? Or is it a strategic move to extend China's influence and set the rules of the game in orbit? Do you see the rise of commercial players in such a state-directed framework as a genuine opening of the market, or as a different form of centralized control? Share whether you find this vision exciting, concerning, or a bit of both in the comments. Does this future of space align with what you want to see?